were very, very ballsy. They got some extra farm for themselves, but then ended up feeding it away to the Faceless Void and company instead. We do see an interesting draft coming out for Team Liquid to start things off. This is something we generally don't see them draft up, especially not this early. But a Lone Druid does get picked up and is going to be run most likely on the off lane here. Or they could go for a safe lane farmer and then go for an aggressive tri lane. Team Liquid loves to do that as well. So that'll be pretty interesting. But as we follow up, the Shadow Demon, which got completely neglected in the last draft, did not get banned, did not get picked. Now he's on the board. Now we're going to see Axe Mike play his beloved here, and we'll see how that works out for them. But in turn, the Batrider does get picked up for Absolute Legends, the Lifestealer Magnus as well. Leaving those heroes open in the pool, they just snatch those right on up and have a lot of potential. If they can get the blink on those heroes, they can accomplish a lot. But the question is, to what end? How are they going to be able to get to that point? And the big thing there is the fact that Bat and Magnus both love to get blinks, but that's 2150. That's a decent chunk of gold on top of boots and bottles and stuff like that. It takes a while to get there, and if they don't have a secure lane to farm it in, it's not going to be reliable within the first 15 minutes. So we'll have to see exactly how they want to lane it. If they want to put the Bat in the off lane, the Magnus in the mid, or reverse those roles, we'll have to see. Either way, Lifestealer going to be making sure he gets the dedicated farm in that tri-lane experience, and we'll have to see from there how they decide to proceed. There we go. Alrighty then. So from there, what Team Liquid should be drafting up? They have a lot of different options. I would think the Gyrocopter would be something that's banned out by Absolute Legends and not going to be something they are willing to commit, get thrown out there, but instead Weaver is going to be picked up in a very similar mindset. He doesn't have AoE initiation, he doesn't have that kind of damage potential, but what he lacks in that, he makes up for in being very, very effective in being a slippery character that's difficult to target, and also the fact that he can dish out a ton of damage, especially to that Lifestealer. Pretty much what you're looking at there is, if Weaver can get a good, well-timed Linken's, then it's going to be difficult for Batrider to lock him down. No lassos coming out unless the open wounds or something along those lines pops it off first. And pretty much that's going to be it for that. Now, after the fact, we're going to be looking at the fact that Weaver is, if he can just survive long enough through a reverse polarity, if he can just survive just barely enough so they can commit that time lapse, he's going to be able to jump up to nearly full HP. And if he can just get a little tanky, like I said, get that Linken Sphere, and then move in for some raw attack damage, he can deliver the hurt to Lifestealer very effectively, whoever picks that up, which again, can be a mix of different individuals, but in this situation here, I would think that it's going to be TC, and then we could have Korak go on the mid with some kind of utility controller, kind of like a Puck or something along those lines. But my expected lane situation here is Weaver generally likes to play very aggressive. I could easily see Team Liquid running into a position where they put Lone Druid on the safe lane. I guess technically Bulba could be running that, or TC. Both of them are well versed in that hero. Either way, whoever does control the Lone Druid up top is going to be solo, whereas they're going to have a powerful utility mid, a Shadow Demon Weaver, and possibly an Undying or something along those lines to play aggressively down on bottom. We do see now that the solos of Queen of Pain and Darkseer are taken off the board. And that's pretty much just Absolute Legend saying, we have the AoE control of Magnus, we have that reverse polarity, we don't need a Darkseer vacuum on top of that, and we certainly don't want you to have it. So taking that on out, they're going to draft for something more unique, and that's mostly because they need supports right now. The Batrider can jungle, the Magnus can solo, but they don't really have hard lane supports, and that's what Team Liquid has been taken off the board with the Rubik here. Nature's Prophet's a little bit interesting. I think they're just trying to make sure that there's not an overabundance of those Nake's bombs, jumping on in with the Infest and dishing out a heck of a lot of damage through that, and the Batrider blinking in, the Nature's Prophet teleporting in, suddenly having 3 or 4 people, one place, one time, and just kind of finding those opportunities they otherwise wouldn't. So it's a good draft there, and taking off the Bane is another really good option. But I agree with Absolute Legends wholeheartedly as well. Took off the Queen of Pain, took off the Puck, 2 really, really high mobility utility mids that Korak would love to have as an option here. Alrighty then. So beyond that, we'll have to see exactly what happens after this draft and where they're going to go from here. Like I said, AL is going to be looking to secure a support pick. This seems crazy, but if Team Liquid picks up a Undying, I wouldn't say that it's the worst thing in the world to pick up a Dazzle. It seems really silly. It's not something that's currently in competitive meta, but if TL goes for a Undying, they don't really have much to counter it, and the supports are going to be dropping quickly if the disruption into zombies comes on through. And it's really, really devastating in this kind of aggressive tri-lane situation. Although Lifestealer will find himself in an okay spot, they took care of a lot of defensive supports. They took care of the Bane, they took care of the Rubik, so now you're looking at a twin-headed dragon maybe. Disruptor wouldn't be that great. So yeah, I honestly think a Dazzle, although it seems ridiculous, it could be powerful. They're going to go with the Chen. I think that's a very solid pickup. It means that Batrider is going to have to solo lane, but they have okay options for going 1 versus 1 against Lone Druid. You're never going to be favorable going into a Lone Druid matchup, especially a good one, because he's always going to be able to harass with the bear while he's last hitting with the Druid. But I think that it's going to be posing opportunities for them to go more branching out with the Batrider, getting good solo, reliable experience, and same with the Magnus, and then from there having Chen and a dedicated lane support down and bottom. So Lifesteal is going to go with the Chen in the jungle nearby, and they're just going to try to make sure they can control the bottom lane as best as possible. Easier said than done, but one great thing about Chen is he's so item independent that he could pick up sentry wards, a couple of sentry wards, really early on. He could honestly get like 4 of them just to make sure that that is controlled entirely against TeamLiquid here, because Shuki is just too powerful. But we do see Windrunner come out, and I'm curious to see if that's going to be a TC Windrunner. If that's the case, these lanes are completely different. But pretty much what they want to do is make sure Windrunner has a farm priority. It's a little bit weird. And yeah, I definitely think these lanes are a little bit misjudged now. I think most likely that they could still just be running a mid Windrunner. That's the bottom line. But we do see a Shadow Shaman come out from AL. Absolute Legends with the Shadow Shaman will have that powerful disable, but it's not something that can stay prevalent when you have that disruption on the field. You drop down the disruption on top of the shackles, it turns into a fraction of a second disable, and from there he's really mostly focusing on his Hex and his Ether Shock, and trying to make sure that that's going to be relevant. So Teal's going to be looking into the last thing. They have just over 40 seconds to decide. I definitely think, in my personal mind, that if they're going for aggressive tri-lane with Weaver and Shadow Demon on bottom, they want to be looking at Undying, just because he's so powerful in the lane. But if that is an IX Mech Shadow Demon, we also have seen Fluff and stuff run Visage over and over and over again to great effect. So I'm curious to see if that's something they want to be looking into as well. Either way, they going to have the Lone Druid up top and the Windrunner in mid, is my estimate there. And now that they're up against the Shadow Shaman, they just have to make sure that they have the disables early on to deal with it. Because like I said, Visage and Undying are great heroes in a tri-lane versus tri-lane, but they don't have any lockdown. And if you have to save the disruption every single time to make sure shackles don't go on through for full 2.5, it's going to be rough. So they go with the Disruptor. Even a rank 1 glimpse will help out in that regard. And I'm curious to see how it'll play out. It's going to be a really interesting laning phase, that's for sure. And of course, laning phase in this situation having full jurisdiction of what happens towards the mid game. But Boba picking up that Weaver, TC picking up that Lone Druid. We'll have to see exactly if my estimate of an aggressive tri-lane is accurate now that they picked up this Disruptor, or if they're going to have to change things up with the Chen and Shadow Shaman putting out so much pressure in the bottom lane. Is there no sound? Oh, there's sound. Okay, that is important. Okie dokie. So what we're looking at here, picking everything on up. I'll just go on through the roster real quick. Mania going to be picking up that Batrider, runs that on the off lane. Unicorn going to pick up the Lifestealer as per usual. And we do see that we're actually going to have Miggle on the Magnus this time instead of Miracle. This is going to be interesting. Anyways, Miracle is going to be run that Shadow Shaman, so he seems to be more and more going for that supportive role. That's something that he used to run mid a lot. He used to have a lot of potential to go for these AoE initiators, but picked up the Sand King last round, now going for the Shadow Shaman in this circumstance. So a little bit different, but I mean, they need to change something. The one thing to mention as far as ratings go is that they're currently looking at a situation where Absolute Legends is 0-3 for the matchups that they've gone on through, compared to TeamLiquid sitting at 3-3. So generally speaking, this is they're definitely not expected to win this, but if they can come out on top, if they can change something up, find a new role that works and connects with the team, I definitely think that it's anybody's game still. So we'll have to see. Early aggression coming out from the Super Panda Spirit Bear, picked up by the Lone Druid. TC going to be running that up top eventually, but for the moment just scouting on out and taking a couple hits here and there with it. He's perfectly happy with that. In the interim, we do see Fluff, Korok, Bulba, and IX Mike down here, but they actually don't even know what that's about. Bulba going to be picking up some, I guess when he exhausts his wards, he's going to get his branch back. Anyways, That's because I think that's a really smooth move, because Shikuchi coming out of the Weaver allows him to be that much more mobile, allows him to be that much more active in his warding, because he can always evade on out. Maximum movement speed from the Shuki, as well as the fact that he does, of course, have invisibility. Speaking of, let's look at early sentries. We do have some from Miracle. Shadow Shaman picking those up, has a couple available. Starting off right off the bat, they're going to de-ward the one that was picked up here with a nice, actually, long-range vision ward. This could take out anything down here as well, so it's a pretty versatile ward. Ether Shock picked up early. Doesn't mean much as far as disable goes, but if they need to do that early burst damage, they'll be in okay position. But oddly enough, they're going to go for a 2-1-2. Fluff is going to actually zone out Mania here, supporting TC as much as possible. And that will definitely limit how much Batrider can acquire up on the top lane. But along with that, down on bottom, we are only going to be seeing Bulba and Ike Smike, two great lane controllers. They have a lot of presence in this lane, but as soon as the Chen comes out to play alongside the Shadow Shaman, it's going to be more and more difficult for Team Liquid to actually contest this directly. Meantime, Korok does pick up that 4 CS in the mid lane, the Null Talisman Rush, helping out quite a bit in that regard, since he does sit at 63 damage, which is pretty insane for a ranged hero. I mean, looking at Magnus, he only has 60, and he's melee. He has to walk all the way up there to go for those CS. Mania doing some hits here and there, and as long as you stack up that napalm pretty high, the Spirit Bearer is less dangerous based on the fact that he can't close the distance, he can't get those Orb of Venom, auto attacks, or entangling roots on out. But the fact that Disruptor is here, the fact that Fluff just gets all those right clicks off, forces Mania to commit 1/3 of his regen already. And that's really big. Oh my gosh, speaking of big, holy crap, did they get a perfect time sentry out. They got a high roll in the Test of Faith, they got the Ensnare out on the Weaver, and something I did not expect whatsoever, coming on out for Absolute Legends, picking up a first blood against Bulba on the Weaver. Shuki is just such a great escape tool, such a great survivability mechanic, but if you get the sentry, on top of that the Ensnare during the Shuki, he completely is counteracted, and that was just good positioning, good timing between Miracle and Rise. Really, really good movement from them. Getting a supportive first blood. Now going for Shadow Demon level 1 with that Ensnare, with those shackles, should be able to clean it up easily. He does disrupt to delay the inevitable. It just sets up Unicorn to make sure he gets, or Rise, to get that first blood. So he's going to get early boots, early flying courier wards everywhere, and that's going to make Bulba's life a living hell. If he has to have sentry wards on the lane all the time, it's not going to work out for him. Along with that, Ike Mike sitting so low in experience, only 31 XP gained, and they knew it. They had that opportunity, jumped on in, and even without vision, they just flanked in and found their opportunity. Nice movement there, and it really, really sets that bottom lane behind. I was already talking about it being difficult, but now, giving 2 kills to the enemy, it is immensely dangerous for them. So, we'll have to see how that proceeds on through. Miggle and Miracle hasting on in, goes for the shackles onto Korok. He is in tower range, though, going to take some hits. Kind of a mistake by Miracle, actually a terrible mistake. Korok looking for a power shot to follow it up, but I don't think it's going to be able to finish him off one way or another. Still, Miracle jumping on in, he only had to come up here. He just had to stand in this position here, get the shackles off, instead walked inside the tower range, and that was costing him way too much. Lifestealer picking up a magic stick. Interesting maneuver there. I mean, it's helpful in some regards, but I guess it's just to counteract the damage coming in from the Shikuchi. Generally don't see it purchased in that regard, but it's still something that's valuable, and I think the Lifestealer can benefit a lot from that burst heal in low HP circumstances. Kind of surprise the enemy with how much he regains along with that feast, which continually just keeps him healing up gradually. Miggle has that bottle coming out as well as boots, and along with that, Korok is probably going to be looking to do the same. Currently not sitting in the bestest positions, though. I'm not sure where all his gold went, but even though he's sitting at 15, 16 CS, it's not really been setting him up for those boots early on enough, and that's because he committed so much to his starting item build with all those stats to pick things up from the beginning. Illusion picked up by Korok. We do see continuous action down on the bottom, but as far as sentry wards coming on up, Miracle still always has one in store, ready to drop it down at a moment's notice. And also they do have a good lane ward here too, so just check out Radiant's Vision. They have control of the bottom room, they have full understanding all the way up to the tier 1 tower as far as what is going on for Team Liquid, and that really, really helps them out to contest things directly. Now we do see an attempt to skewer Korok away from the Troll Warrior Ensnare, just Miggle knowing that he could not actually close the distance to actually set up that Ensnare. He wanted to skewer him back after the Ensnare came on through, but just too good of movement from Korok. He's able to win run away and be perfectly safe here in the mid. Now, one thing to mention is TC is not getting as much CS as I would have expected him to. He is still topping out compared to Unicorn, but his lane isn't really directly contested. They forced Mania back for the moment. They have actually put it in a position where... well, let's see if anything happens down bottom first. Starting things off, they get the ensnare, but the Shuki is coming off cooldown here. Do they get the shackles? The disruption comes down instead, canceling out the shackles at the perfect time. Kind of lucking out there, but either way, they have to fall back. Lib's going back into a terrible spot. He does have that magic stick, pops it off immediately. Still taking a lot of damage, though. Would be able to get out. And with that, Bulba having to wait his time, just really worried about enemy sentries, but this dire sentry ward in the lane does help them out a little bit. Doesn't help them deward this ward right here, but it does make him sure that there are no sentries in the midst of the lane to detect him on out of that Shuki. Either way, disruption to start things off here. They don't have a kinetic to follow it up, though, and they're just going for raw right-click damage, thundering strikes, and with that, it's enough to finish it off. Nice shackles on Bulba, though. Under tower, he's going to drop. Really good usage with those last couple seconds of his life. Getting that kill in return, and now chasing down Ice Mike. Kinetic Field comes on out, but the last right click is enough. And Lifestealer, Unicorn is going to pick up that kill. Nice action there. Rune Spawn will be on the top. Double damage for Korok. Good guess there. A little bit fortunate for him. Tranquil Boots are going to be picked up by Mania here, so... Although the Disruptor did have to TP on out, it looks like TC is going to have a hard time harassing back Mania on his own. Even with his Orb of Venom, he's going to get right clicks here and there, but the Tranquils will keep him active enough that he will be able to sustain in general. Transition on through, we do have Magnus with that Reverse Polarity available. No other spells to coincide with it, but the Arcane Boots here will change that entirely. So getting an opportunity to try to initiate long range a little bit in a surprise circumstance now that nighttime has struck and the vision is reduced and the ganks are that much easier. 1800 gold for Lifestealer. Is Unicorn, even in this versus 2 lane, is he willing to commit to a Midas this early on? I'm curious, but I'm not too sure. Gotta say, Korok caught out of position here entirely. The skewer did follow up nicely, so they shackled, they skewered, and they brought him down, but it's just him not being in the right spot. That is kind of, from his earlier play, I expected him to be a lot more on his toes, considering everything was off the map, but instead he does get dropped down. There's going to be no power shots to clear this creep wave, and instead they're going to put big damage in this tower, at least the siege creep, getting a few hits here and there. So again, dueling it out down at bottom, Lifestealer picks up for a direct drum. Again, he does not like to build for hard carry unless he has to. He wants to go for that early team fight mid game, and from there, if he can follow that up with phase boots, he'll be happy enough to just push on towers and help out Chen to put out that early pressure that kind of draft always provides you. Alex Mike, really poor. Kind of down to rock bottom of this stage in the game. Miracle actually looking for an opportunity to pick off on Bulba. They see the Shikuchi come on through, but Chen is going to be the one to have to spot him out. Can follow up with that ensnare, but it's a little bit early. So Bulba has enough of that Shuki. We'll be able to just go to the northwest, and unless Miggle does get a little bit lucky, it seems like Bulba is going to be in an okay spot right here. Looking for that shockwave. It doesn't have the time lapse. He actually could guess it. He guesses it perfectly, and Miggle gets the kill. Nice movement there. And one thing to mention is that he never passed on through. He never actually gave that little hint of his positioning based on the fact that he took that damage. So that actually made it so that Miggle had to guess perfectly, but professional players know exactly what the intentions of their opponents are. And with some observers and some sentries, I think he had a little bit of extra vision as far as what his opponent was doing. Either way, nice move by him. Getting a pick off there puts another point on the board for them, 6-1. And most of these kills have been in regards to Bulba. Putting that pressure out early so that Weaver can't get out of hand is actually a really smart move by their part. I don't know about that. So Miggle going in for that haste rune, looking for some action onto this mid lane. Actually could have gone for Korok if he had the vision, but there's just too much potential for reinforcements. Goes for that skewer, but it's just a little predictable, and Korok is able to wind run right on out. Back and forth, Bulba continues to try to put that damage in onto Unicorn with the Geminate, with the Shuki, but it can only accomplish so much. Now Unicorn has farmed up that drum, has plenty of attack speed to feast on away through the creep wave, and he's going to be able to sustain nicely. In the jungle, outside of it, whatever. He has his phase boots, he has his drum. Magic stick is enough for him to stay in. I think he's willing to commit to earlier skirmishes now, 3v3 type stuff. He is easily going to be able to stay on top of, especially when that Infest comes off cooldown. Now, one thing I mentioned was 2 pinnacle points for Absolute Legends. When that damage comes out from the Batrider when he's able to get enough money to pick up the Blink Dagger, he's going to be in a nice position. So right now, sitting at 860, he's a bit deprived compared to where you would normally be in a mid Batrider situation, but it's made up for the fact that Miggle has picked up a killer or so on his own. He has been moving in nicely, and now he has roughly just 900 gold to go before he will be able to pick up the Blink of his own and start things off on the right foot. Servant Wards go down on the bottom tower with this toughness aura from the Wildkin. They can easily put pressure on out here, but he's going to actually commit to the Hand of God just to make sure the Wildkin will be able to survive through those next few right clicks. And that means that despite the fortification, they are easily going to be able to take this tier 1 down. And that's very, very nice. I haven't actually seen that new Ether Shock animation, so that's pretty cool.
Dire's bottom tower has fallen.
Down at bottom, Miggle picking up and sniping up a double damage rune. Korok would have loved to be able to fill himself up back to full HP and start delivering huge right clicks on top of rank 3 shackles, but it's just not happening in this regard, and from there, he's going to be just kind of biding his time on the mid lane. Hopefully has enough vision to be able to respond to aggression coming on out. Has Observer Wards here. Let's check out the Dire Vision in general. What you see is any flanks coming in from this position here, as well as anybody walking across the top. They have Sentry Wards on top of them, so smoke won't generally be as effective. Still losing map control rapidly. Miracle starting off with that Hex, following it up with the beautiful Shackles, just with that Sentry Ward detected out, and Bulba gets picked off once more. Not a good spot for him to be in. And that is, again, his 4th death. So it just keeps on adding up, and that'll set them up to put pressure out on the tier 2 as well. They have the Dark Troll Summoner. He can do so much with those zombies, and we do see just blood splattering everywhere as they start to go for a huge push on through. They've had no Basilius this entire time, so that's a little bit interesting as far as how that's kind of coming on through, but it's generally not that big of a deal in their mindset. Rank 2 Shadow Poison being spammed out from IX Mike, putting out some counter pressure, so they're going to fall back from here. But I think it's more so about the fact that Korok has arrived. He's transitioning finally from mid lane and wants to put some damage out. Like right now, it's sitting 0-1 and 0. Has not committed to a single kill or even assisted on one, but he's gotten enough farm to stay mobile and stay active. And from there, he has no choice. He really, really needs to go in and try to get those high skill level shackles off to set things up. Now, with so many Chen creeps roaming around, that's actually not too difficult. There's a lot of different things that are always going to be nearby, and you can always just try to pin somebody to that to make sure you get a long duration disable. But there are different ways to dodge it out. There's the Rage, and now there's actually the Blink Dagger picked up on Magnus. If he can disjoint a shackle and turn it around for a reverse polarity, they automatically win a fight. 100%. Miracle in a bad spot, though, is going to be picked off here. Just really, really no hope for him whatsoever. Now, Unicorn in a terrible, terrible spot as well. Glimpsing back in Miggle. He could have technically gone for the RP, but instead gets just a semi-shackle with the power shot, with the Geminate. Should be enough. Oh, he just hits on... Yeah, hits on absolutely nothing there. I'm not exactly sure how that one went down, but either way, Unicorn is going to be able to limp away from this fight. Magnus, not so fortunate there.
Radiant's middle tower is under attack.
Alright, Windrunner using that regeneration rune. The pressure from the battle cry, level 10 Lone Druid. Bringing down this tower very rapidly down to 300 HP, and that's going to set them up for some nice early gold on the board. They're so far behind right now. 4k gold, that's a lot of money that's going the other way. AL picks up 2 Blink Daggers in this short time period. Magnus has one, right? Okay, yeah, it was on the ground. Magnus picks up that Blink. He now has a Nake's Bomb inside of him, TPing aggressively towards the mid lane, but Batrider has farmed up his as well. Mania took his time, but he finally has that kind of initiation, and as soon as they get vision, they are a force to be reckoned with here. Just tons of damage, tons of disable, and all they need is just a fraction of a second to be able to jump on in and get that damage off immediately. So, we'll see how effective that will be in a moment, but right now, just, you know, flexing their muscles here as they drop down the tier 1 tower. Oh my gosh, Korok getting pulled on out. The glimpse breaks the chains, and Korok's going to be able to walk away here. Nice movement coming out from Fluff, but the follow-up, the question is, will Miggle still be willing to commit? Once he's gotten entangled, Nake's has to come out and just put this damage out. Instead, Shackle, there is a Static Storm kinetic field. Miggle can't do anything right here, but they're not following up with the damage. Disruption, Disruption onto Disruptor. Hand of God comes on out. Unicorn in a bad spot here, has a lot of mobility though, and there's not too much to chase him on down. Instead, Magnus goes in, gets 2 of them in the RP as well as the Bear, immediately bringing down the SD, going for the Lone Druid as well, going to finish him off and try to turn for more. They don't really have much more lockdown though, and they're just going to take this as a push opportunity. So, very, very effective for them. It means that Rise is going to be able to move in towards that mech in no time at all. But I think this tier 2 tower is going to drop quickly, and without the fortification, they might not be able to do anything at all to contest it. Their map control is rapidly declining, and soon it's going to be difficult for Liquid to have any opportunity to see what's coming. They're going to have to ward like crazy if they want to avoid this massive initiation from Mania and Miggle together. So we see a drum going to be built up by Bulba in the long term. I'm not sure exactly if it's just so many deaths that's putting him in that mindset, or if he feels it's going to be that much of a helpful aura to help out the lone druid keep doing what he's been trying to do. Now jumping over, TC doing a little swap over the Midas trick to make sure that he gets the experience from that gold kill, and then just putting it over to the bear for the greater attack speed benefit. Putting pressure out in mid. They did a little bit of poke and prod at this before. The fortification does come out, but they're going to have to TP a lot faster than they already are if they're going to commit to this. They seem to want to fight, but they don't have an RP. They have to use the Bat Rider, and instead Miggle gets thrown away with the Nakes inside. They're jumping on in, though. They do actually get to pick off on Fluff, but a nice Shackle Shot comes on through. Not too much more follow-up as Fluff walks away. Everybody is scattered all over the place, but Korok is the one on low life. Have to watch for this next shockwave to come on through. Looking for Korok, he finds him, dropping him down to one hit from death. He dies to the neutrals, dies to the Harpies, finishing him off, and now the Wild Goose Chase is at an end, as Fluff and Stuff falls as well. Now, in that chaotic session, we did see Bulba get picked off, as well as the Bat Rider. So, messing that up there for some reason, but yeah, taking off Mania as well. Either way, the Armlet is going to be heading out for the Unicorn and setting him up for a lot of attack damage here and there. Now pushing in towards tier 2, the creep wave in a perfect position, and the siege creep is still alive. They just want to make sure the siege keeps on going, and they have plenty of neutral creeps to make sure that's going to be the case. So, either way, Absolute Legends actually setting themselves up for a nice team fight. As far as the tower goes, I believe it actually was killed. Yeah, Lone Druid gets a tower kill. Shadow Shaman finds another opportunity late in another position. But either way, the big deal there is that they only committed the Bat Rider Lasso. They didn't have to use the RP, because I don't believe they had it off cooldown. And from there, they chased on through. They picked off 3 different heroes, including Bulba yet again. And it's just putting himself in a really bad spot. 830 HP. And as far as detection goes, they're still just spamming out those, I was going to say Central Wards, but they don't have any on them. So Radiant needs to step that back up, but they've been doing such a good job that it's not that big of a deal one way or another. One of these limitations when you run a dual core, or kind of a almost tri-core, with Korok really wanting to find good farm for his Orchid as well, is the fact that once you start getting pushed out of your lane, once you don't really have options down here, because the tier 1 has already fallen, you're going to have to move in towards the jungle. And we see just that everybody's kind of fighting for jungle creeps. Bulba getting some, TC getting a little bit others, but in general, those 3 heroes all want to get some farm, and it's not really open minute by minute to all of them here. Now we do see this push coming on down towards the bottom. They do have the fortification once again, but the TPs are going to be too slow. They know they can't really deal with this, but they have to, even when as soon as they start on this tier 1 up on the top lane, they're going to start having to TP back, because Absolute Legends is going to immediately force the issue and try to batter down on the high ground. And if they can get on in, that can be extremely big. But speaking of a big kill, Miggle and Unicorn finding out the Lone Druid completely slipped my mind there. I didn't think that they'd find an opportunity like that, but with the smoke active, looks like they do have a disconnect coming on out in just a second. But what it was essentially is Magnus had not only his reverse polarity available, but the Nakes was still inside him. They were smoked up before, and while their allies pushed out onto the tier 2, they started roaming. They started to try to find pickoffs here, and because of the beautiful warding coming out from Absolute Legends supports, they were able to find the Lone Druid coming in towards the mid lane for farm, and picking him off was immense. He was going for that Maelstrom, but that's going to be delayed, and more importantly, there's nothing he can do to contribute to this bottom tower now. So he does have his Bear Summon when he comes up, but what we see is that they are going to be a hero short, and this is going to be plenty of time for them to go in and try to finish the job here. They have plenty of neutral creeps to tank it up as well, so every hit in this tier 3 helps them immensely. Now we go see the Swarm trying to deter them, and it looks like that will be the sign to fall back, but they still got a few hits there, here and there, taking about a third of that tower's HP, and that's really substantial to make sure that they are staying on point with that. Look at the gold graph. We do see a 10k advantage here. They're moving in towards bigger and better items. The Chen picking up that mechanism, the armlet up on that lifestealer, and it looks like the Chen wants to go for a halberd. Rise sees the opportunity where if he can just disarm the lone druid, his bear, or the weaver, they can make sure that they don't have to really worry about big right-click damage. Of course, it's also extremely effective as far as effective HP. Because of the fact that it provides evasion, 25%, some of the best strength per gold cost in the game through that Sange. And then, of course, he already has the mechanism, already has the Hand of God. So, in general, it's going to be harder and harder for Rise to drop down, which is something you generally don't see from a Chen, even at a 19-minute stage with a bunch of towers down. One thing to note is they have taken down all the outer towers. They've taken all the tier 1s, all the tier 2s, and as such have been working less and less to control the map. Now we do see Batrider getting some vision of what's going on here, but going to be forced back with that glimpse. Now jumping on in are all these neutral creeps, looking to snipe up this Roche, maybe deny an Aegis, but starting off Fluff drops off the static kinetic, and now the Aegis is dropped down, picked up. They get both the kill on Roche and the Aegis in the hands of TeamLiquid here, and they're just going to fall back and let the bear drop down. It's a little bit unfortunate for TC. He does have a 50-second cooldown left on that bear, but taking the Roche, and if Fluff can get on out of here, they're okay, but unfortunately, doesn't seem like that's an option. Dropping him back down with the flame break. That is one dead Mr. Raptor. So taking the Aegis to the bank, TC will be able to finish up his Maelstrom and be, I guess you could say, confident in his survivability with the Aegis, with the bear that's going to be coming up in a moment. But until he gets that cooldown off, 2 minutes later, it's going to be pretty much meaning there's 2 druids, but there's only 1 bear. And as soon as you take that bear down, the druid himself is not that big of a threat. So that's something to keep in mind for Absolute Legends as they kind of call priority targets moving on forward. Force Staff coming on out for Mania, allowing him to pretty much do the best initiation possible. It won't put him out of range of Glimpse, so in general, as long as Fluff stays on top of that, it's not going to be that big of a deal. But even just Force Staffing an enemy out in the direction they don't want it to be adds in a ton as far as pulling somebody out of position. You get that lockdown, you get that opportunity to follow up, and most importantly, you put a sense of chaos and fear into TeamLiquid. They scramble to try to pick up the pieces of the team fight, and what you end up seeing instead is that opportunity for everybody to rush in after the fact. If you see, let's say your Windrunner, Korok, gets blinked in on and gets lassoed forward, the Batrider Force Staffs himself, and from there you just pulled the Windrunner, let's say 800 to 1000 away from the team fight. The immediate response for even pro players is for TeamLiquid to group up, to just kind of dash in forward to make sure they can pull them out of a bad spot, trying to get the kinetic field off, even though the static is not that great of a range. So dropping those kinds of things down, the Lone Druid trying to get some hits in, defensive disruptions, things along those lines immediately jump to mind. But if you're clustering up like that in a panic, they're going to be able to pick you apart with Miggle's Reverse Polarity. And I'm curious to see if that's exactly how this is going to play out. We'll have to see. But Mania is in a good position here with that Force Staff to pull even further from what they've already been doing. On the high ground, Unicorn doing some hits on the tower. Does not want to get entangled, though. Has to watch himself in that regard. Does not have that Aegis, of course, and getting glimpsed back on in. They go for the kinetic, they go for the static, but he's glimpsed so far in that they're just going to Batrider out. Oh, he actually raged on out of the glimpse. Never mind. But now they just pick off on Fluff and stuff. Unicorn jumping in for some damage, but does get Demonic purged up. Miggle goes an RP on 2. Good turnaround there. And Ike's Mech is going to drop down quickly. Bulba is going to be able to time-lapse on out. Ike's Mech caught in the wards despite the defensive disruption. Falls in the end, and so does the bear. Lone Druid doesn't have bear up for 15 seconds. No real damage. Nice shackle on Rise, but the Hand of God, the mechanism's still there, trying to bait it out. Does get both of them across, and now jumping on in. They skewer away. Bulba in a bad spot with the shackles to follow up, and they call a good game. The team fight's over. The racks are going to fall, and they know they can't follow up after the fact. They haven't found the farm they need to. They just haven't. Too many kills. 3 kills on the lifesteal, 8 assists, and they lost the team fight. They're going to lose the racks, and that is good game called. So we see the advantages here. Over 8k experience advantage, over 12k in the gold department. It's just too much. Unicorn's going to get huge with this Heart of Tarrasque. It's just something they cannot respond in kind to. If they can't finish off a Chen by shackling him inside the enemy's base, you know that's a point in time where it's just not enough coming out from you. And I just gotta say, really, really good timing for that fight from Absolute Legends. The bear was not able to be resummoned, as I said, and so despite having an Aegis, TC was out of the fight for the last 20 seconds. And so that's going to be pretty much it. They've all disconnected on out, and now we're just going to wait for the Ancient to fall, as it generally does. And in this circumstance, it's going to be Absolute Legends taking Game 2 of this best-of-3 series. So it went now 1-1. We're going to be moving on to Game 3, and hopefully it will be just as exciting, if not more so. But this has just been really solid play from AL. They actually pulled in together. Mago got some great RPs off, and they were very, very effective. I'm surprised the Batrider, I'm surprised Mania was able to come out with that Blink Dagger so soon. But it really worked out for him in the end. So using that to great effect, they get the initiation off, they get the team fight follow-up, and showing kind of an off-pick of the Shadow Shaman, and the fact that he can be that much more relevant in this current scene as in any other. So, well played to them, and despite fighting up against an Aegis Druid, they take the final battle, they take the win, and that's going to be Absolute Legends advancing on to Game 3 versus TeamLiquid in just a minute. So thanks for tuning in, guys.